The image before you captures something that defies all natural logic. A golden retriever puppy and a Bengal tiger cub playing together in the grass, their paws intertwined in a moment of pure innocence. But what you're about to discover goes far beyond this adorable scene. This photograph hides a disturbing secret. 2 years after this moment was captured, something absolutely shocking happened between these two animals that would change everything. What began as an impossible friendship between species that were never meant to meet ended in a scene so intense that witnesses were paralyzed, unable to believe their eyes. India's Sundarbans forest held secrets few humans have the privilege of witnessing. Among the dense trees and the nocturnal sounds of the jungle, Dr. Sarah had set up her temporary conservation camp 3 weeks ago. Her goal was clear: to document and protect the Bengal tiger population, which was critically endangered by poachers. What she didn't expect was that her most faithful companion, Marley, a 6-month-old golden retriever puppy, would become the protagonist of something extraordinary. Marley was more than a pet. He was the veterinarian's inseparable companion, always by her side during long walks through the forest, watching every movement of the wildlife with curious eyes. The golden cub had an infectious energy, running through the trees, sniffing every corner, completely oblivious to the dangers lurking in the Indian jungle. But there was something special about Marley that Dr. Sarah always noticed: an unusual sensitivity, an ability to perceive the suffering of other animals before she herself could. It all began on a sweltering monsoon afternoon. Dr. Sarah was collecting water samples near a waterfall when Marley began barking desperately. It wasn't his usual playful bark. It was a high-pitched, insistent sound, full of urgency. The pup ran in circles, looking at his owner and then in a specific direction through the dense forest, as if begging to be followed. The vet hesitated for a few seconds, but Marley's persistence overcame her resistance. Following the cub for about 50 meters through the dense vegetation, Dr. Sarah finally understood the reason for Marley's despair. Near a small pool of murky water, half covered by fallen leaves and branches, lay a creature that made her heart ache, a Bengal tiger cub, no more than 3 months old, covered in wounds and clearly dehydrated. Its bluish eyes could barely stay open. Its breathing was irregular and shallow. All around, bloodstains told a brutal story the veterinarian knew all too well. Poachers. They had struck again. They had likely killed the cub's mother to sell her skin and organs on the black market, leaving the orphaned cub to slowly die of starvation and dehydration. Dr. Sarah felt the familiar rage burn in her chest, but there was no time for emotion. The cub was on the verge of death. Marley approached cautiously, sniffing the little tiger with surprising gentleness. Instead of fear or aggression, the golden retriever displayed something unexpected: pure compassion. As Dr. Sarah rushed back to camp to get her emergency veterinary kit, Marley remained by the tiger cub's side. When she returned 15 minutes later, the sight she found left her speechless. Marley was lying next to Raja, as she would later decide to call the cub, gently licking his wounds and keeping him warm with her own body. The little tiger, even in critical condition, had accepted the dog's presence, as if instinctively recognizing that this being posed no threat, but rather hope. Dr. Sarah worked with surgical precision for the next few hours. Raja's injuries were extensive, but not life-threatening if treated properly. There were deep cuts on his hind legs, likely caused by metal traps used by hunters to capture animals. His body temperature was dangerously low, and dehydration had left his skin flabby and inelastic. The veterinarian administered antibiotics, meticulously cleaned each wound, and administered fluids through a makeshift IV. Throughout the procedure, Marley never left Raja's side. What impressed Dr. Sarah most was Marley's behavior. The normally lively and playful golden retriever puppy remained quiet and attentive, as if he understood the gravity of the situation. When Raja whimpered in pain during the dressings, Marley pressed his nose against the little tiger's, making low, comforting sounds. It was as if the dog was telling him that everything would be okay, that he was not alone. The veterinarian had studied animal behavior for 15 years, but she had never witnessed such a clear and unequivocal level of interspecies empathy. That first night, Dr. Sarah set up a makeshift recovery area inside her main tent. Raja was too weak to be left alone in the wild, where other predators might attack him in his vulnerable state. She prepared a bed of thermal blankets and positioned a heat lamp over the tiger cub. Marley, unprompted, lay down next to Raja, sharing his own body heat. The veterinarian observed the pair for hours, documenting each interaction in her field journal with a mix of scientific fascination and emotional admiration. The following days revealed the true miracle of the friendship that was forming. Raja began to respond remarkably to treatment. His temperature stabilized, his wounds began to heal, and most importantly, he began accepting food. Dr. Sarah prepared a special milk formula enriched with nutrients that orphan tigers needed, but initially Raja refused. It was Marley who found the solution. The golden retriever puppy began licking Raja's nose after eating his own food, leaving traces of food. Encouraged by the scent and comforting presence of his new friend, Raja finally accepted food. The routine that developed was something of a documentary. Every morning, Marley would wake before dawn and immediately check on Raja. The little tiger, gaining strength each day, responded with small roars that sounded more like a house cat's meow. The two would spend hours playing within the safe confines of the camp. Marley would bring Raja twigs to chew, teaching him to play again after the trauma he had suffered. Dr. Sarah watched in amazement as the dog instinctively adjusted his strength during play, never becoming overly aggressive with his injured friend. But it was at night that the connection between Marley and Raja grew even deeper. The Sundarbans forests were dangerous after dark. The sounds of predators echoed through the trees, monsoon thunder shook the earth, and the darkness brought with it a primal sense of vulnerability. Raja, still traumatized by the loss of his mother and the poacher's attack, would often wake with a start, his eyes wide with terror. In those moments, Marley was always there. The golden retriever would press his body against the tiger cubs, lick his ears gently, and remain awake like a silent guardian until Raja fell back to sleep peacefully. Dr. Sarah captured these scenes on video, knowing she was documenting something science has rarely captured: pure, unconditional love crossing species barriers. 3 weeks had passed since Raja's rescue, and the transformation was evident. The tiger cub, once on the brink of death, now had a shiny coat, alert eyes, and an energy that grew daily. His wounds had healed completely, leaving only small marks that would eventually disappear beneath his striped fur. Raja had gained weight, his muscles were beginning to develop, and his confidence was gradually returning. But most remarkable was how he and Marley became inseparable, creating a friendship dynamic that defied any animal behavior manual. Mornings in the forest became Dr. Sarah's favorite time to observe the pair. As soon as the first rays of sunlight broke through the treetops, Marley and Raja would race out of the tent and into the grassy clearing near camp. It was there that the most incredible games took place. Marley, with his playful golden retriever nature, would initiate interactions by jumping around Raja, inviting him to chase. The tiger cub responded enthusiastically, his paws still a little uncoordinated but full of determination. The two rolled through the grass damp with morning dew, their canine laughter and feline roars blending into a symphony of pure joy. Dr. Sarah captured dozens of photographs of these moments. In one particularly special one, Marley lay on his back in the vibrant green grass, with Raja positioned above him, his front paws resting on the golden dog's chest. The two gazed at each other with a tenderness that seemed impossible between a domestic canine and a wild feline. Marley's pink tongue lolled in a characteristic smile, while Raja wore an expression of absolute contentment, his blue eyes shining with childlike innocence. This image would become the perfect symbol of the unlikely friendship that had blossomed there. The play between the two revealed much about their distinct personalities. Marley was the more extroverted one, always initiating activities, bringing dry leaves or small twigs for Raja to chase. The golden retriever seemed to have naturally assumed the role of big brother, even though he was only 3 months older than the little tiger. Raja, in turn, displayed a feline curiosity. He watched Marley's every move with intense attention before replicating it, learning from the dog how to explore the environment safely. When Marley dug in the earth looking for something interesting, Raja tried to imitate, his still small claws scratching the ground with adorable determination. Dr. Sarah noticed that play also served as therapy for Raja. The trauma of losing his mother and nearly dying alone in the forest had left invisible emotional scars. In the first few weeks, Raja avoided straying too far from camp and would jump at any unexpected sound. But with Marley by his side, the tiger cub began to regain his natural confidence. The golden retriever encouraged him to explore new areas of the clearing, always staying close if Raja felt scared. When a noise startled the little tiger, Marley simply continued playing normally, demonstrating that there was no danger, and Raja gradually learned to trust again. The moments of rest were equally precious. After hours of energetic play under the tropical sun, Marley and Raja would lie together in the shade of a large sal tree near camp. Marley often used Raja as a pillow, resting his golden head on the cub's striped body. Raja, in turn, purred softly, a sound Dr. Sarah knew tigers made when completely relaxed and happy. She watched these scenes with a mixture of joy and melancholy, knowing that this magical period could not last forever. Raja was a wild animal, and eventually he would need to return to the wild. But for now, in this isolated patch of Indian forest, two cubs of completely different species had found in each other the family they both needed. The routine at the camp had settled down with surprising harmony. Dr. Sarah continued her conservation work during the day, documenting adult tiger tracks, collecting water samples, and monitoring the overall health of the ecosystem, while Marley and Raja accompanied her like an inseparable pair. The golden retriever had taken on a protective role over the young tiger, always walking a few steps ahead, as if checking the path was safe for his smaller friend. Raja followed confidently, his eyes fixed on Marley, learning from the dog's every move how to navigate the complex forest. Mealtimes became moments of fascinating interaction between the two. Dr. Sarah prepared separate portions for each, respecting the distinct nutritional needs of their species. Marley received his balanced puppy food, while Raja ate a special high-protein diet that mimicked what he would eat in the wild. Interestingly, both showed interest in the other's food. Marley would sniff Raja's bowl curiously, while the little tiger tried to steal bits of the dog's food. The veterinarian allowed small exchanges, observing how this interaction strengthened the bond between them, transforming each meal into another opportunity for connection. During the hot afternoons, when the tropical sun made any physical activity exhausting, Marley developed a peculiar habit that Raja soon adopted. The golden retriever found a small, crystal-clear stream just a few meters from camp and began wading into the shallow water to cool off. Raja, hesitant at first, watched from the shore. Tigers were naturally good swimmers, but the orphan cub had never had the opportunity to learn from his mother. It was Marley who became his makeshift teacher. The dog would wade into the water, play with the small waves, and gently encourage Raja to join him. The first time Raja entered the stream was a moment of silent celebration for Dr. Sarah. The little tiger took cautious steps, his paws touching the surface of the water uncertainly. Marley remained by his side, never leaving, offering the security Raja needed to overcome his fear. When he finally had all four paws in the stream, Raja let out a soft roar of satisfaction. The two began to play in the water, scattering glistening droplets around them, their animalistic laughter echoing through the forest. The veterinarian captured this moment on video, knowing she was documenting not just a friendship, but a process of emotional healing. Nighttime remained the most difficult period. Despite all the progress, Raja still carried the weight of his loss. Sometimes, in the darkness, he would wake from nightmares, his small growls sounding distressed. Marley had developed an automatic response to these moments. Even sound asleep, the golden retriever would wake instantly at the first sign of Raja's discomfort. He would approach, press his warm body against the little tiger's, and begin licking his ears with repetitive, soothing movements. Dr. Sarah observed these scenes through the dim light of her flashlight, moved by the depth of Marley's empathy. As the weeks passed, Raja began exhibiting behaviors indicative of his natural growth and development. His play became slightly rougher, his teeth sharpened, and his strength visibly increased. Dr. Sarah knew these were healthy signs of a young tiger developing properly. Marley, with his remarkable canine intelligence, adjusted his play style as Raja grew. When the little tiger bit too hard during play, Marley would let out a soft whimper, naturally teaching boundaries. Raja learned quickly, controlling his strength so as not to hurt his best friend. It was a mutual education, where dog and tiger taught each other valuable lessons about respect, boundaries, and unconditional love. The 6th week at camp brought inevitable changes. Dr. Sarah received a radio message informing her that her conservation mission was coming to an end. The project had accomplished its primary objectives, documenting the region's tiger population, identifying hotspots for poaching, and establishing patrol routes for local rangers. In 2 weeks, she would need to dismantle the camp and return to civilization. The news weighed heavily on her heart, as it meant making a painful decision about Raja's future and her friendship with Marley. The veterinarian knew Raja couldn't accompany her. Removing a tiger from its natural habitat to a distant rehabilitation center would be traumatic and unnecessary. The cub was healthy and strong, and the Sundarbans forest was its rightful home. There was a protected area about 15 kilometers from the camp where other orphan tigers had been successfully reintroduced. Raja would be taken there, where rangers would monitor his adaptation until he was ready to live fully in the wild. It was the right decision from a scientific and ethical standpoint, but emotionally devastating. During those last weeks, Dr. Sarah watched Marley and Raja with even more intense attention, trying to commit each moment to memory. The two had developed their own language of communication. Marley barked a specific way when he wanted to play chase, and Raja responded with a short purr that signified agreement. When the golden retriever wanted to rest, he lay down on his side, and Raja immediately curled up beside him. There were no verbal commands or formal training, just a deep, intuitive understanding between two beings who had chosen to love each other despite all their differences. The vet began preparing them both for the impending separation, though she knew it would be impossible to make them fully understand. She began taking Raja on longer walks into the forest, gradually moving away from the camp so he could familiarize himself with more remote areas. Marley always accompanied them, but Dr. Sarah noticed how the dog seemed more attached than usual, rarely letting Raja out of his sight. It was as if Marley instinctively sensed something was about to change, that their time together was running out. One afternoon, while documenting their behavior, Dr. Sarah witnessed a scene that made her question for the first time whether she was making the right decision. Marley had found a fallen, moss-covered log and was attempting to climb onto it. Raja watched from below, his blue eyes fixed on his friend. When Marley reached the top, he turned and barked encouragingly at Raja, as if to say, "Come on, you can do it." The little tiger hesitated for a moment, then leaped with feline elegance and joined Marley at the top of the log. The two sat side by side, gazing out at the forest beyond, like two brothers contemplating their shared kingdom. In that moment, the veterinarian realized she wasn't just separating two animals, she was tearing apart a family. Final preparations for departure began. Dr. Sarah dismantled her equipment, packed her research, and arranged for Raja's transport to the reintroduction area. She had spoken extensively with the forest rangers in charge, ensuring that Raja would receive appropriate care. They assured her that the cub would be monitored daily through cameras installed in the forest and that his adaptation would be gradual and careful. But no technical guarantee could ease the pain Dr. Sarah felt as she watched Marley and Raja playing together for the last time, completely unaware that in 48 hours they would be separated by miles of dense forest, possibly never to see each other again. The last day at camp dawned shrouded in a dense fog typical of tropical forests. Dr. Sarah woke before sunrise, watching Marley and Raja sleeping together for the last time. The golden retriever had his front paw resting on Raja's body, as if even in sleep he were protecting his friend. The little tiger purred softly, his chest rising and falling in a calm rhythm. The veterinarian felt tears sting her eyes, but forced herself to maintain her composure. She was a professional, and this separation, painful as it was, represented the best possible future for Raja. The rangers arrived at noon, bringing a carrier specially designed for tiger cubs. It was spacious, ventilated, and lined with soft blankets to make the trip as comfortable as possible. Dr. Sarah explained in detail Raja's medical history, his diet, his behaviors, and especially his friendship with Marley. The rangers listened attentively, some visibly moved by the unlikely story they had just learned. One of them, an older man named Kumar, commented that in 30 years of working with wildlife, he had never witnessed such a strong bond between such different species. The moment Dr. Sarah had been dreading had arrived. It was time to place Raja in the carrier. She called to the little tiger in a choked voice, offering him a special treat he loved. Raja approached confidently, unsuspecting. Marley, however, began showing clear signs of distress. The golden retriever began whimpering, circling Dr. Sarah and Raja repeatedly, as if trying to prevent what was about to happen. When Raja entered the carrier and the door was closed, Marley let out a howl of pain that echoed throughout the forest, a sound so full of suffering that it froze everyone present. Raja, inside the crate, began scratching frantically at the door when he heard Marley's howl. His roars turned into desperate meows, the same sound he'd made when he'd been injured and frightened weeks ago. The two animals were clearly in pain, trying to reach each other through the physical barrier that now separated them. Dr. Sarah knelt beside Marley, holding him tightly as tears finally streamed freely down his face. She whispered words of comfort that she knew the dog couldn't fully understand, but that she needed to say anyway. The ranger vehicle slowly pulled away along the narrow trail leading out of the camp. Marley tried to run after it, but Dr. Sarah held him tightly, knowing that letting him chase the vehicle would only prolong the agony. The golden retriever remained staring in the direction Raja had disappeared, even after the dust cloud settled and the sound of the engine faded. For 3 hours straight, Marley remained in that position, refusing food, water, and any attempt at comfort. He simply waited, with the unwavering loyalty only dogs can demonstrate, for his friend to return. That night, the last at camp, Marley didn't sleep. He lay awake, occasionally letting out low moans and searching for Raja in every familiar corner where they used to play together. Dr. Sarah watched him with a broken heart, questioning for the first time in her career if she had made the right choice. She knew Raja needed to return to the wild, that it was his destiny and his right as a wild animal. But as she watched Marley suffer, a cruel doubt crept into her mind. The next day, they completely dismantled the camp. Marley climbed into the vehicle listlessly, lacking his usual energy. Throughout the drive back to civilization, the golden retriever kept his nose pressed against the window, staring at the receding forest, as if hoping to catch one last glimpse of his best friend's orange stripes emerging from the trees. 2 years had passed since that devastating goodbye. Dr. Sarah had returned to her veterinary clinic in the city, where she treated pets and occasionally attended wildlife conservation conferences. Marley had grown into a magnificent adult golden retriever, with a shiny golden coat and eyes still as expressive as when he was a puppy. But something about him had changed permanently. The vet noticed how Marley would occasionally stop during their daily walks, staring blankly into any wooded area, as if searching for something he couldn't find. Dr. Sarah maintained regular contact with the Sundarbans Rangers, receiving monthly updates on Raja. The tiger had adapted exceptionally well to the wild. Now nearly 3 years old, Raja weighed approximately 200 kilograms of pure muscle power, his coat displayed the characteristic stripes of an adult Bengal tiger in its prime, and surveillance cameras captured him hunting with impressive efficiency. He had established his own territory in the forest and displayed all the behaviors expected of a healthy wild tiger. From a scientific perspective, the reintroduction had been an unqualified success. But Kumar, the older ranger, mentioned a peculiar detail in his messages that intrigued Dr. Sarah. Cameras frequently captured Raja near the area where the old camp was located. There was no logical reason for the tiger to return to that specific region, as his established territory was farther north. Kumar speculated that perhaps Raja still carried some memory of those 2 months he spent being cared for there. The veterinarian kept this information close to her heart, wondering if the tiger, despite all his wild magnificence, still remembered a golden retriever puppy who had been his first and only family. The opportunity to return to the Sundarbans came unexpectedly. The International Conservation Organization for which Dr. Sarah was consulting offered her a temporary 6-month position leading a new research project in the same region. The goal was to study tiger breeding patterns and evaluate the effectiveness of anti-poaching measures implemented in recent years. She accepted immediately, and without hesitation, decided to take Marley with her. After all, the golden retriever had always been her fieldwork companion, and she couldn't bear the thought of leaving him behind again. When they finally reached the forest, Marley's reaction was extraordinary. As soon as he stepped out of the vehicle, the dog began sniffing the air intensely, his tail wagging with a speed Dr. Sarah hadn't seen in 2 years. Marley ran straight to the clearing where their old camp had been set up, now covered in vegetation that had grown during his absence. The golden retriever sniffed every inch of the ground, as if searching for traces of memories buried in time. He found the moss-covered log where he and Raja had sat together that distant afternoon, and simply sat there, staring into the forest with a heartbreaking intensity. The new camp was established just 300 meters from the original site, near the same crystal-clear stream where Marley had taught Raja to wade. Dr. Sarah organized her equipment, set up surveillance cameras, and prepared to begin the next phase of research. But something was different this time. Marley displayed a behavior she had never observed before. Every morning, just at dawn, the golden retriever would walk to the edge of the clearing and stand there, completely still, simply staring at the dense tree line. It wasn't fear or apprehension. It was anticipation. It was as if Marley were waiting for someone, as if some deep instinct told him that this forest still held something precious he had lost. The third week at the new camp brought the monsoons with brutal intensity. The rains began in the afternoon, quickly turning the sky into an impenetrable gray curtain. The wind whipped the trees fiercely, and thunder echoed through the forest like ancient war drums. Dr. Sarah had experienced tropical storms before, but this one was particularly violent. The rivers and streams in the area began to overflow their banks with alarming speed, the muddy water invading areas that normally remain dry. She knew she needed to be extra careful with Marley, keeping him close to camp until the storm passed. But Marley had other plans. The next morning, when the rain had eased to a persistent drizzle but the river currents remained dangerously strong, the golden retriever disappeared. Dr. Sarah had briefly gone out to check her monitoring equipment, which had been damaged by the storm, and when she returned, Marley was not in the tent. She called out to him repeatedly, her heart racing with each passing second without a response. She grabbed her emergency pack and followed the dog's tracks in the mud, which led directly toward the swollen river. When she finally reached the riverbank, Dr. Sarah felt terror freeze her blood. Marley was in the water, being swept away by the raging brown current. The golden retriever struggled desperately to swim against the river's force, but the storm had turned the normally calm waterway into a deadly torrent. The veterinarian screamed Marley's name, running along the bank, trying to keep up with the speed at which he was being swept downstream. Her screams mingled with the sound of the water and distant thunder, creating a symphony of absolute despair. Marley managed to cling momentarily to a rock partially protruding from the raging water, panting and visibly exhausted. Dr. Sarah was frantically calculating how she could reach him when she saw something that transformed her terror into pure horror. 2 dark, sinuous shapes emerged from the murky water, approaching Marley with deliberate, predatory movements. Crocodiles. The region was known for harboring porous crocodiles, one of the most aggressive and dangerous species in the world. The reptiles had detected the dog in distress and were approaching from opposite directions, executing a coordinated hunting strategy they had perfected over millions of years of evolution. Marley sensed the danger. His eyes widened and he tried to swim again, but exhaustion had taken its toll. His paws could barely keep his body afloat. The first crocodile was less than 5 meters away, its jaws beginning to open, revealing rows of teeth designed to tear and drag prey into the depths. Dr. Sarah stood paralyzed on the shore, completely helpless, her brain refusing to accept that she was about to witness the death of her most loyal companion. She screamed for help that she knew wouldn't come in time, her hands shaking as she tried futilely to find something, anything, to save Marley. Then it happened. A roar exploded through the forest with such intensity that birds fled the trees in frenzied clouds and the very earth seemed to tremble. It wasn't the roar of any animal. It was the sound of 200 pounds of alpha predator announcing its presence, a primal warning that echoed in the DNA of every living creature nearby. From the dense vegetation on the opposite bank of the river emerged a sight Dr. Sarah would never forget. Raja, now a fully grown Bengal tiger in his prime, his striped coat wet from the rain, his muscles rippling beneath his skin, his amber eyes fixed with laser-like intensity on the scene unfolding in the river. And in those eyes, Dr. Sarah recognized something impossible, something that defied everything she knew about animal memory. Raja had recognized Marley. Even after 2 years of separation, even through the murky water and the distance, the tiger knew exactly who was in danger. What happened in the next few seconds seemed to defy the laws of physics and nature. Raja didn't hesitate. The tiger dove into the raging river with the confidence of a predator born to dominate both land and water. Its movements were fluid and powerful, each stroke of its giant paws cutting through the current as if it didn't exist. The crocodiles, which moments before had been confidently advancing toward Marley, immediately changed their behavior. Crocodiles were predators at the top of the aquatic food chain, but tigers were absolute masters of any territory they set foot on. The reptiles instinctively retreated, recognizing superior strength. Raja reached Marley in less than 10 seconds, positioning his massive body between the exhausted dog and the crocodiles. The tiger roared again, this time directly at the reptiles, an unmistakable warning that left no room for interpretation. The crocodiles quickly submerged, disappearing into the murky waters, their hunting strategy completely abandoned in the presence of the feline. Raja then did something that left Dr. Sarah breathless. The tiger gently picked up Marley by the scruff of the neck, much like tigers carry their cubs, and began swimming toward the nearest shore, where the veterinarian was. The strength required to swim against that current while carrying the added weight of a full-grown golden retriever was superhuman, but Raja performed the task as if it were routine. His muscles worked in perfect harmony, his hind legs propelling them both against the river's force. Marley, even in his state of extreme exhaustion, showed no fear. He recognized the touch, recognized the scent, recognized the presence that had been his first family. The dog remained relaxed in the tiger's jaws, trusting his rescuer completely, even though 2 years and hundreds of pounds of growth separated them from those puppies playing in the grass. When Raja finally reached the bank and gently deposited Marley on the muddy ground, Dr. Sarah rushed to them, her medical training immediately activated. She quickly checked Marley's vital signs, her heart still racing from the terror of the last few minutes. The dog was exhausted, soaked, and shivering, but there were no serious injuries. She wrapped him in thermal blankets she carried in her backpack, rubbing vigorously to restore his body temperature. Throughout this process, Raja remained just 2 meters away, watching with protective intensity. Then came the moment Dr. Sarah could never adequately describe in words. Marley, still trembling but regaining his strength, lifted his head and looked directly at Raja. For long seconds, dog and tiger simply stared at each other, bridging the chasm of 2 years of separation in completely different worlds. Then Marley did something that could only come from the pure heart of a dog. He slowly rose to his feet, his paws still trembling, and walked directly toward the tiger that had just saved his life. Dr. Sarah held her breath, every scientific instinct screaming at her to intervene, but something held her paralyzed. Raja lowered his massive head to Marley's level, and the golden retriever pressed his nose against the tiger's, just as they had when they were cubs. The tiger closed his eyes and emitted a deep purr that reverberated through his massive chest, a sound of contentment and recognition. For several precious minutes, the two remained like that, reconnecting through a language that transcended species, time, and all the laws that should govern the natural world. Marley began to lick Raja's nose, and the tiger allowed it, his tail swaying gently from side to side. Then, as if some ancient instinct called him back, Raja took a step back. He looked at Marley one last time, his amber eyes conveying something that seemed frighteningly close to unconditional love, and then turned toward the forest. Before disappearing into the trees, the tiger stopped and looked back one last time. Marley sat, his tail wagging slowly, watching his friend leave again. But this time was different. There was no despair or confusion. There was understanding. The debt had been paid. The circle was complete. Two unlikely beings had saved each other, proving that gratitude, loyalty, and true love recognize no barriers of species, time, or circumstance. Dr. Sarah stood on that muddy bank with Marley for over an hour, both of them staring at the spot where Raja had disappeared. She knew she had just witnessed something science would struggle to explain, something data and studies could never fully capture. In that remote patch of Indian forest, two lives had intertwined in a way that defied logic and reason, creating a story that would be told and retold, reminding humanity that in a world often governed by violence and survival, there is still room for compassion, memory, and unbreakable bonds that not even time can destroy. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel to help me bring you more stories, and activate the bell. Let me know what you think and share your tips and suggestions in the comments. There are many more incredible stories waiting for you here on the channel. Keep watching and discover other moving stories that will touch your heart.